welcome to Freedom Today. We're so glad you could join us. Our show today is about divorce and children surviving divorce in blended family situations. That's commonplace today.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's everywhere. So many families are split, and children get tossed around.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Exactly. In fact, I came from a broken home as well. And, you know, as a child, it was always, you know, where are you going to be at Christmas? Where are you going to be at Thanksgiving? Where are you going to be at Easter? And I even grew to hate the holidays because, you know, I was torn, you know. I wanted to be with my father. I wanted to be with my mother, but they were not together.
Were you ever used as a tool against one parent to the other?
Well, you know, sadly, yes, just
Yeah, that's
because
the
of,
problem.
you know, I think because my parents didn't know. They didn't know that their own issues were causing me grief. They had no idea.
Yeah, and so often it seems in divorce that the focus is on the individual, this spouse and that spouse, and then the children are left in the middle as pawns or forgotten about entirely because the issues are so profound between the parents.
Well, the Bible clearly says that God hates divorce.
Yes.
And children suffer greatly in homes where there's been divorce.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the stats are so staggering that children of divorce oftentimes really have problems later on in life. But it seems like there are programs coming about today where that's not always have to be the case.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah,
Praise the Lord.
That if it's going to require the spouse and the individuals to work together more effectively, but it's not a death sentence or for that child. And our guest today, Tammy Daughtery, is the founder and CEO of Co-Parenting International, an organization which addresses the critical impact of co-parenting on children of divorce. She's an author and dynamic public speaker who brings her much-needed message to venues around the country. Co-Parenting Works, working together to help your children thrive, is Tammy's newest book on this critical topic of co-parenting, which launched with Zondervan earlier this year. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Tammy, I thank you for coming. You've got a message that touches the multitudes. And part of that is because we live in a culture today where families are fractured.
Right.
And not just outside of the church, but inside of the church.
Right.
Your book, Co-Parenting, the title, can you share with us what that actually means?
It's called Co-Parenting Works, Helping Your Children Thrive After Divorce. And the heartbeat behind this book is helping moms and dads who may have gone through a divorce and parents that are blended families, anyone who has a child that lives between two homes, trying to help those parents work together so that those children can have the most amazing life ever and then go on to have healthy, stable families of their own. So the message is not about endorsing divorce or encouraging people to go that way by any means. But like you said, in the church, outside the church, divorce is 50 to 51% of all families. So every year there are millions of children who have parents that go through this. Sometimes they're 2, sometimes they're 12. There's a rising trend of parents divorcing once kids are off, you know, in college. But whatever age it happens, children need a voice, and this book is their voice. It helps parents understand what are the kids going through and what can parents do to minimize the pain for their children.
That's important. Tammy, you're talking about children and the suffering that they go through through divorce. Let's
Right.
focus on that just a minute, because oftentimes parents get so caught up in the process of divorce
Right.
that the children are left out altogether.
Right.
So what does the child actually experience in a family that's divorcing?
Well, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that. I would say, though, the biggest issue that all children would have in common is grief and loss. Losing the traditional mom and dad in one place, losing the holidays that they're used to, losing the extended family sometimes that they get to see quite often. Many children are moved from maybe the school system that they're in, moved to a whole nother school system. So loss and grief are very critical for children. And it is true that many times when a parent is going through that devastation, they're barely surviving, and they miss the layers of pain that children have. And one of the most common problems that teenagers go through, moms and dads that are going through a divorce, they have teenage kids. Well, they think, well, the kids will understand if I tell them why we're getting divorced. And parents many times lean on their teenagers and tell them way too much information about the divorce or the negative decisions that the other parent made. And so one of the basic things we encourage moms and dads to do, no matter what age the children are, is to do everything they can to truly never speak ill of that other parent. Because what that does to children is, when one parent focuses on the negative characteristics of the other parent, that child innately knows they're from both mom and dad. So if something is wrong with mom or something is wrong with dad, something's been wrong with me as a child. And so helping parents realize when those words of destruction get said, they really are not putting down the other parent, they're really destroying their child's soul. So that's number one, no matter what age the children are, is to never ever speak ill of that other parent, because the flip side of that can actually help children when they're grieving and they're feeling confused about their love and their alliance between these two new homes that they're coming and going from. If moms and dads will actually find 3 great things to say about that other parent as a gift to their children, that can drastically minimize what we call the divided self. And children can realize, wow, it's okay to celebrate that other parent. And like I was saying, the name of your show, Freedom Today, one of our number one things is we want children to be free to love both mom and dad. And so if smart parents can really take hold of that and realize that, sure, there's reasons that they're unhappy with their ex. Everybody goes through a divorce for a reason, and multiple reasons sometimes that are very hurtful and destructive. But if parents love their children and they really can stay focused on what is best for kids, not losing sight of them when they're hurting, helping them have as much familiarity as possible, and then really pointing out positive qualities about that other parent, then their children truly can have a hopeful future.
That is so, oh my goodness, such an important message, Tammy. And I thank you for writing the book. When families are divided, everything seems to crumble, and the children feel like they don't have a foundation anymore.
Right.
And do you find that during that time frame, especially for teens, is that a time when children will veer off of the path of righteousness?
Many times, what I try to remind parents, teenagers are going to be hard no matter what. And sometimes parents that are divorced, when their teenagers start to struggle, they add on to that their own shame and frustration or guilt for taking their children through a divorce. So first, I would say, if a parent of a teenager is seeing complicated circumstances with their teen, half of that could be normal, because teenagers do really go through difficulty, even in a traditional home. And the other half could definitely be related to the divorce. And there are some specific things they can do to try to minimize that.
Tammy, when teens do go through this situation and they're so shaken, what are some things that parents should look, trouble signs that parents should look out for that would bring an awareness that their teen is in need of help?
Well, I think one thing to always watch for is if a teen isolates. If a teen has been an active teen in school, active in church, and they begin to unhook from their peers and unhook from the social settings, they start to be in their room more, alone more. Children who go through divorce often will go through a temporary depression. And so if a parent sees their child starting to back away from some of their normal interactions, deciding, I don't want to be in band anymore. No, I don't think I'll go to youth group tonight. Those are things to watch for and to not allow the child to completely isolate. And often the kids are not going to want to talk to their parent because they're angry and they're hurting. But finding a teenager, a healthy, stable adult to talk to, whether it's a counselor who specializes in teens, or if a parent can't afford that, finding a pastor at church, a youth pastor, a coach at school, someone who's going to speak, half of the issue would be to listen. Someone who's really going to listen to that teen and then who could really speak some truth and some hope into that teen's life. A couple other things, divorced parents should still be healthy parents and be learning about parenting. So I challenge divorced parents, find books about raising teenagers, about preparing for, sending them off to college. Find the resources and buy them in two. And mom and dad each read that same book. Read a book about how to help a troubled teen, and then find a way in both households to look out for those red flags.
What if the man and wife do not see eye to eye? What do you do in that situation?
Well, that's a very common thing, from anything on finances to faith to personality to hobbies. And I think single parents especially have got to decide, what are my boundaries at my household? What are the legacy issues that I want my children to remember as they grow up? What are the traditions that are important? And a single parent can really establish a healthy, stable home, even if the other parent does not honor those same rules and guidelines. And that gets very difficult. And unfortunately, one of the worst things that angry parents can do is use that against each other and allow a child, say at one home, if a child is grounded from media for a week, no Facebook, no Twittering, no cell phone, and the other parent says, well, I'll be the nice parent. You don't have to be grounded at my home. They think they're trying to get favoritism and pull their child closer to them by not honoring the other parent. But what they're doing is absolutely confusing their children. So boundaries really, one way or the other, they have to be stable in one home. And as much as possible, trying to get on the same page with that other parent is the best thing they can do for kids.
That is so important, because what you're writing about is really a simple biblical foundational principle where parents, regardless, need to put themselves last on the list and their kids first.
Absolutely.
That's not always easy to do,
Right.
especially when you feel like your home is being ripped apart.
Right.
We become more self-focused.
Right.
Isn't that an issue that we need to deal with? Self-focused?
Absolutely. And forgiveness is really difficult, especially in the first year after a divorce. Being angry, being hurt, wanting to think about yourself first and not think about anyone else. That's very common for hurting parents. But if they love their children, that's what I always say to moms and dads. If you love your child, then, and if I said to you, let's say your child has cancer, and if I said to you, here is a medicine that will heal that cancer for your child, that will give them more years of living, what would you do for that medicine? Would you sacrifice? Would you sell everything? I think every parent would. I know if my daughter was suffering with cancer, I would sell everything I needed to get her the help she needed.
Right.
And the simple truth that we put in this book about co-parenting, there are hundreds of things to do and hundreds of things not to do. And it does call parents to be very selfless, not because they're not angry, but because they love their children. And we tell parents, find the help you need as a mom or a dad. Find a healthy counselor. Find a healthy adult to talk to. Find 3 friends that you can call at 2 in the morning when you are just at the end of your rope. and do what you need to do to handle your stuff so that you can help your children handle their stuff.
Critical.
Absolutely.
Critical. If the parent is not healthy, they cannot be effective in positive role models for their children.
Right.
So that's an important thing I don't want our viewers to miss, is they need to go get healthy first, right?
Yes, and in the process, it's all a process, but I challenge parents, find somebody to talk to so that you can cry, you can be angry, you can say everything you need to say and process your pain. But never, ever, ever say that to the children. Don't let them be your confidant. Don't put them in the middle, because kids need to love both.
Tammy, I want you to tell me a little bit. I know this book came out of heart of experience. Can you share a little bit about your history?
Sure. Well, my parents actually were divorced when I was a baby, and so I grew up between two homes. Mom was in one city, Dad about an hour away. I lived with my mom, visited my father every other weekend. And so firsthand, I experienced it as a child, what divorce does to kids. And so I was going to be the one that had the 60-year marriage, would never ever get divorced, and certainly would never have children from a divorced family. I had been married 8.5 years and had a little girl, Angelia, who had come near the end of our marriage. And when she was about 1, we were at a fork in the road that was incredibly painful and difficult. And as I found myself stepping into this place of becoming a single mom, becoming a co-parent, knowing from my own experience that her father would be in her life forever, and certainly wanting him to be her father, I realized we need some direction. We want to know, I wanted to know, is there hope? Is Angelia, that's my daughter, is Angelia going to be a statistic like all the other kids, or is she going to be different? And so I actually asked the counselor that we'd been with for a few years, his name's Steve, I said, Steve, can you point me to a book or a seminar, something about co-parenting that Angelia's father and I can go to, that we can begin to work on together? And he said, well, why do you need a book? And I